Join PMU Talks. Join PMU Talks.
We're here to really get into the details of topics that matter in our field. Today, we're looking at something foundational in permanent makeup, something maybe sometimes overlooked, but absolutely critical. We're talking about the preliminary drawing, or as most of us know it, brow mapping.
That's right. It's a step that seems simple on the surface, but it carries so much weight.
Exactly. And we really want to unpack why it's so important. It's not just sketching, is it? It's about design. It's about trust. We're using the art and science of brow mapping as our main guide here. So our mission for you listening is to really get why every tiny measurement, like every half millimeter, can make such a huge difference.
It really does. Because, that preliminary drawing, it's more than just technique. It's that very specific moment. It's where the artist's plan meets the client's actual face, their physiology.
Yeah.
You have to make sure the final brows work with their expressions, their unique proportions, their whole identity, really. It's got to be more than just looking good in a quick photo,
Right. That makes sense. It has to live on their face.
Exactly. And that's why it's this act of design, yes, but just as much, it's an act of trust, a really profound one. When that client looks in the mirror after you've mapped them, they need to see themselves. Maybe enhanced, yes, but fundamentally it has to be them. It needs to feel right, feel authentic.
Not like wearing someone else's eyebrows.
Precisely. If that connection, that trust, isn't there right at that mapping stage, if they look and think that's not me, well, the whole thing can just fall apart before you even start.
That trust element is so interesting. What actually happens, practically speaking, if that trust gets broken right there at the mapping stage? Like if the drawing goes wrong before any pigment is involved?
Well, the most immediate thing is just a total loss of confidence. Right there in the chair, the client might feel like, okay, this person doesn't get my face, or that their features aren't being, respected. If the drawing doesn't feel right to them, they might just walk away. And honestly, sometimes that's for the best if the map is truly off.
Better than proceeding with a bad plan.
Absolutely, because if you do go ahead with a poorly done map, the result can be brows that just feel wrong, unbalanced, maybe unflattering. And that impacts their confidence every single day for months, maybe longer. They might feel really self-conscious. And of course, it really damages the artist's reputation too. So yeah, that map isn't just for the artist. It's crucial for the client's peace of mind.
Okay, so given its critical importance, let's define it more clearly. What is brow mapping, fundamentally, this sort of mathematical artistic thing?
Right. So fundamentally, brow mapping is this really precise technique. It blends art and math, you could say. Its whole purpose is to figure out the ideal brow shape for one specific person's face. It's very individual. And it often uses principles from the golden ratio, that mathematical concept you see in art, nature, architecture.
Oh, right, the golden ratio for balance and proportion.
Exactly. It helps find that sense of harmony and proportion for the face, but it's definitely more complex than just connecting dots. This method lets the artist do several things at once. It helps correct asymmetry, which pretty much everyone has to some degree. It also has to account for facial expressions, how the face moves naturally, sometimes called mimica.
Mimicus,
So, yeah, how you look when you smile or frown. And it makes sure the brows fit the person's lifestyle and how they want to express themselves. They need to feel natural day to day.
That mimica part sounds incredibly detailed.
Yeah.
Accounting for movement. Could you walk us through the actual steps? How did this meticulous mapping process unfold?
Sure. It is very meticulous, or at least it should be. Step one is always, always proper skin preparation. And this isn't just about being clean, though that's vital. It's about accuracy. So complete makeup removal, disinfecting the area, doing an allergy test, that's crucial. The skin has to be totally clean, dry, and free of any oils.
Because you need a perfect canvas for the drawing.
Precisely. Trying to draw accurately on oily or uneven skin, it just won't work. The lines won't be sharp, they might smudge. So once the skin is perfectly prepped, then the artist starts marking the key anchor points for the design. You start with the theoretical center of the face. And interestingly, the source notes this is best found using the tear ducts as guides, not the center of the nose, which can be less symmetrical.
Ah, okay. Tear ducts, not the nose. Good tip.
Yeah, they're apparently a more stable landmark. Then you find the beginning of the brow, the head. That's usually a vertical line up from the side of the nostril. Next is the apex, the arch. That's a line from the nostril passing right through the center of the pupil when the client is looking straight ahead. And finally, the end of the brow, the tail. That's a line from the nostril through the outer corner of the eye.
Okay, so nostril to head, nostril through pupil for arch, nostril through outer corner for tail.
Exactly. And there's a really crucial warning here from the source material. The end point, the tail, must never ever be lower than the beginning point, the head.
Why is that?
Because if the tail drops too low, it creates a visual effect of pulling the eye down, making it look, well, sad or droopy. Definitely not the look most people want.
Right, that makes sense. Avoid the sad eye effect. Okay, so you've got these key points marked. What happens next to actually draw the shape?
This is where the artistry really comes in. Using those points as guides, the artist draws very delicate, precise lines. They'll map out the lower baseline of the brow, the upper boundary, pinpoint the peak of the arch, and define the tail. A really important goal here is to keep as much of the client's natural brow hair within the shape as possible. You want to integrate, not just impose.
So the drawing incorporates the natural hair.
Ideally, yes. Seamless integration is key. And it's worth noting, these lines are guides for the artist. They shouldn't be so thick or dark that they distract the client or make it hard to visualize the end result. They're a technical blueprint.
Okay, blueprint drawn. Now, how do you double-check everything? Ensure those proportions are perfect, especially on a living, moving face. This sounds like where it gets really tricky.
It absolutely is, and this is a huge point the source emphasizes, something less experienced artists might miss. You have to check the proportions and the overall look with the client sitting upright, not lying down.
Sitting up, why is that so critical?
Because when you sit up, your facial muscles naturally engage differently than when you're lying flat. Gravity plays a role, muscle tone changes. This is when you can really observe their natural expressions, that mimica. You watch how the brows move when they talk, when they smile. Asymmetry that you might not see lying down can suddenly become apparent. Or maybe one brow lifts higher naturally. You only see this dynamic when they're sitting.
Ah, so checking while lying down could give you a false sense of symmetry or balance.
Exactly. A brow that looks perfect flat might suddenly look too high, too low, or just move weirdly when they sit up. It's a super common reason for dissatisfaction later if the step is skipped.
Wow. That's a really important detail. I can see how overlooking that could cause major issues down the line. Have you seen that happen?
Oh, definitely. The source is clear on this. You might get a technically perfect drawing lying down, but then the client sits up, starts talking, animating their face, and suddenly one brow seems to shoot up, or they look permanently surprised. It's often because muscles, like the frontalis that lifts the forehead, weren't accounted for in their active, upright state. It undermines the whole natural look.
Okay, so check while sitting. Now, what about correction? We hear that phrase, brows are sisters, not identical twins. How does that philosophy fit into the mapping and correction phase? Clients might want perfect symmetry.
That saying is spot on. Sisters, not twins, is the perfect mindset for correction. The goal isn't mathematical mirror image identity, it's visual balance. Trying to force perfect symmetry onto a naturally asymmetrical face often looks, well, unnatural. It can look stiff or mask-like. So the artist needs to work with the client's natural asymmetries, making subtle adjustments to create harmony and balance to the eye. It's about enhancing their unique features, not stamping a generic perfect shape onto them.
So it's about respecting the face's natural character.
Exactly. Embracing that individuality is key to a result that looks like them, only better.
Okay, so adjustments are made for visual balance. What are the very final steps before pigment application begins? You've got the shape, you've checked it sitting up.
Right, two final things need to happen. First is regulation. This is basically tidying up. Any stray hairs outside the beautiful map you've just drawn are removed, usually with tweezers, maybe wax. And importantly, you should always brush the existing brow hairs in their natural growth direction while doing this to see how they lie within the shape. Then, step 7 is fixing the drawing. You need to make sure that precise map stays put during the procedure.
How do you fix it?
You can gently powder over the lines with a transparent powder, or use a special fixing spray, sometimes even a bit of soap on a brush to really sharpen the lines. This creates a clear, smudge-proof guide for the artist to follow.
And what tools are typically used for all this mapping?
The source mentions a few key ones. Mapping thread is great for creating quick, straight, symmetrical lines across the face. A very sharp pencil allows for precise points and fine lines. A ruler or caliper is essential for measuring, checking symmetry axes, and ensuring proportions are correct. Tweezers for the regulation part. And then a brush, maybe with some micellar water handy, for cleaning up any smudges and refining the lines as you go. Each tool has its specific job in getting that map just right.
It really is a detailed process. Let's circle back to asymmetry. You said it's the norm, not a flaw. That's a big mental shift.
Sure.
How does the mapping process specifically address different types of asymmetry?
That's a great question because asymmetry isn't just one thing. The source highlights how mapping helps respond intelligently. Take muscular asymmetry. Maybe someone naturally lifts one brow higher when they talk. The map shouldn't try to rigidly force that brow down. Instead, the artist might subtly adjust the shape so it looks balanced when the face is resting, maybe slightly compensating, but not fighting the muscle, especially if the client uses Botox, which can change muscle movement.
Right, you have to account for that potential variable too.
Definitely. Then there's bony asymmetry. Sometimes the actual bone structure means one brow sits physically higher than the other. You can't change the bone, obviously. So the map adjusts things like the arch height or the tail length slightly on one side to create the illusion of balance. It's a visual correction. And third, hair growth asymmetry. One brow might naturally be thicker, thinner, have gaps, or the hair might grow in a different direction. The map takes this into account, adjusting the drawn thickness or length to blend seamlessly with the existing hair, aiming for that overall impression of balanced density and shape.
So it's always about creating that impression of balance,
Yeah.
not forcing an impossible symmetry.
Precisely. It's about harmonizing, not fighting the face's natural state.
With all this complexity, there must be common mistakes, especially for newer artists. What are the big pitfalls to avoid during brow mapping?
Oh, absolutely. The source points out several common errors. A big one is placing the apex, the arch, too close to the center of the face, towards the nose. This tends to create a permanently surprised, or sometimes even an unintentionally angry look. Not good.
Yeah, definitely want to avoid that.
Another issue is drawing the mapping lines too thick. It seems minor, but thick lines can actually hide the very edge where the pigment needs to go. It obscures the precision needed. Also, extending the brow tail too far out, way beyond where the natural brow would ever grow. This almost always looks artificial, very drawn on.
Right, staying within the natural boundaries seems key.
It is. And then there's neglecting the mimico we talked about, not checking those facial expressions properly. This leads to brows that look okay when static, but seem to float or look weirdly disconnected when the person moves their face. And finally, getting too caught up in achieving perfect mathematical mirror image symmetry. As we discussed, this often leads to a result that looks technically correct, but aesthetically stiff and unnatural. It lacks that organic feel.
It sounds like avoiding those pitfalls requires both technical skill and a really good artistic eye.
Exactly, it's that blend again. Art and science.
So, pulling this all together, it seems crystal clear that brow mapping isn't just a nice to have. It's fundamental, right? It's not optional for professional PMU.
Absolutely, 100% mandatory. For every single PMU brow technique, whether it's microblading, powder brows, combo, nano brows, whatever comes next, mapping is non-negotiable. You simply cannot skip it or rush through it and expect a quality result.
And what are the actual consequences if someone did try to skip it?
Well, it's basically setting yourself up for failure. Without that percents map, how do you know the correct hair stroke direction for microblading? How do you ensure the proportions are right for that specific face? You can't achieve that natural harmonious look. The symmetry will likely be off. The shape might not suit them. The whole thing could look misplaced. The final appearance, how natural it looks, how well it lasts and heals, it all hinges on getting that initial map right. It is the foundation. Everything else is built on it.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive has really shown us, I think, that the preliminary drawing, the brow map, it's so much more than just step one. It's like the hidden framework that determines the success of the entire procedure.
That's a perfect way to put it. The source really drives this home. It says that the preliminary drawing is the moment that defines how the artist's work will be remembered. Think about that. You could be amazing with your machine or blade, know your pigments inside out, understand skin perfectly, but if that initial design, that map, isn't right for the client's face, none of that other skill can fully rescue it. The shape is paramount.
The shape is the first thing people see.
Exactly. And that map isn't just the plan for the artist. It's also the client's first real look at their potential transformation. It's that moment where they see the possibility. It should be a moment of excitement, of recognition, not confusion or doubt.
That leads perfectly into a really powerful closing thought from our source material. It says, the preliminary drawing is that first moment when a client can look in the mirror and say, finally, someone sees my face exactly as I feel it. Isn't that profound? It connects the technical act of mapping to something much deeper, understanding and reflecting the client's own sense of self. It makes you think, doesn't it? Beyond brows, where else in life, or maybe in other crafts, does that kind of meticulous, personalized upfront design make all the difference in connecting with the final result on a truly personal level? something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.